Welcome, everybody. My name is Christian Hockey, and I'm the coordinator of the MFA in Writing at Pratt Institute, and this is the first ever thesis reading by the inaugural class of 2016 of the Pratt MFA in Writing. I want you to keep clapping, and I'm going to read the names of the graduating class. Stephen Boyer, Mahogany Brown, Luke Degnan, Marjua Estevez, Phoebe Glick, Stephon Lawrence, Saretta Morgan, Zahra Patterson, Cecily Schuler, Abel Shifferaw, Kat Tice. Amazing. So I've invited a few people to say a few words to start us off. The first is Dean Andrew Barnes, and Andy has been a huge supporter, as everyone knows, of this program. He's done so much for us, so put your hands together for Dean Andy Barnes.
Christian is so formal. Dean. Hey, this is totally cool. I'm excited for you guys. I want to thank Christian and Rachel and all the other professors who have really were the ones who made this program something really unique, something that you don't find anywhere else really in the country for an MFA in writing. And I want to thank you guys, the class of 2016, woo, and the first graduating class, because you too have made this something really, really special. A program that's, God, these lights are really bright, aren't they? Beware, they're really bright, these lights. Really, you've made it something special, something that doesn't exist anywhere else, and I'm super, super excited. And I'm excited to hear you. And you'll see me, the graduating class, will see me on Tuesday in the ugliest robes you have ever seen, so try not to laugh too much. So, congratulations, and also I want to do a shout out for the felt. This is really handsome. You guys did really, really good. So, good job, good luck, and let's go.
So speaking of the felt, I want to invite Tracy Grinnell to come up and say a few words. She was the coordinator for the thesis class this semester. She held everything down. She was extraordinary. And wait, is she here? Oh, there she is. Okay, great.
So I am... I'm bringing wine up here because I'm going to make a toast. Yeah, we did a lot this year. It was amazing to work with Phoebe, Stephon, Marjua, and Luke on the felt. The print copies over there, and the online journal, which just launched yesterday, and with everyone in the graduating class. Really, being on every single thesis committee was intense and totally amazing. Each one was different and really fantastic. I learned a lot. It was amazing to come in where the projects were and see them to completion, and you all did such an amazing job. So congratulations. Cheers.
And then I want to invite core faculty member and associate coordinator Rachel Levitsky to come up and say a few words. And I want to say a few words about Rachel. I don't think there's any other faculty member who helped more to get this program off the ground than Rachel. And this class and the first year class, many of you are here and in this program because she recruited you and brought you here. So Rachel.
We keep toasting. Yeah, okay. Christian and I worked together for all those years with all those inches, but 1 foot and 3 inches of difference between us. A lot of moving the mic. So I wrote something, and then I read today in the Times, or maybe yesterday, that there's a group in the Bernie Sanders campaign that is saying, well, maybe we can't support Hillary, but we can work against Trump. And I feel like that is support for my particular roast toast. So I'm going to read it. When Christian asked me to toast you all, my mind wandered over to Stephon Lawrence's final studio crit in which she instructed us, and I'm paraphrasing, please don't tell me it's about the internet. So I've been thinking about these 11 courageous writer activists and that the spirit with which they came to this new program and their willingness to make something new, which I learned from them, is as much about what you don't want, won't do, will reject, will fight, as what you want, as much about negating as affirming. So this is also my affirmation, toast, of the missed deadlines, the books you refused or debated, the crit of the crit, and the remaking of studio, the program features you agonized over with us, and all the ways you made this program by equally demanding its constant unmaking. Here, 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 not here.
So this first inaugural class, like Rachel said, has really created this program. And I think what you've done and accomplished inside the Institute and outside, and how you've brought the outside into the Institute, I'm thinking of WWOC in particular, to in turn transform or challenge it. This kind of making and creating will define what we do here for a long time. And I think this is, in some sense, what's meant by the term legacy. Each of you has challenged or disrupted what Robin Kelly calls our culture's classed, racialized, nationalized, gendered, moneyed, and militarized stratifications. If it seems contradictory that this would be possible in a college setting, then I would cite Harney and Fred Moten, who suggest that the university is and can be a space of refuge in and a sabotage from the undercommons, a subversive way of being in but not of a university. The undercommons is a fugitive network where a commitment to abolition and collectivity prevails over a university culture often bent on creating professionalized, isolated individuals. Harney and Moten put forward a call to think together, to plan and make, create together in undisciplined assembly. And our unruly and often contentious main writing studio crit, where so much of the work you'll hear tonight was first heard, is nothing if not undisciplined, full of ruptures and contradictions. I don't know about thinking together as being a pure goal. I would add that the importance of thinking contradictions together is one additional goal, because it's the contradiction that produces or signals and allows for an opening or new opening of opportunity, new modes of connecting and sharing knowledge, sociality, being together, being elsewhere together. In the undercommons of the university, we meet, quote, those others who dwell in a different compulsion, a distance, forgetting, remembered again, but only after. These other ones carry bags of newspaper clippings, or sit at the ends of the bar, or stand at the stove cooking, or speak through bars, or speak in tongues. These other ones have a passion to tell you what they have found, and they are surprised that you want to listen. And we do want to listen. We'll start with 6 readings. We'll take a short break and come back for the final 5 readings. Each graduating student will be introduced by a first-year student writer. So for the first half, Lyric Hunter will introduce Stephen Boyer. Adriana Green introduces Mahogany Brown. Maria Baker introduces Luke Degnan. Ana Reyes Bonar introduces Marjua Estevez. Laura Perez Munoz introduces Phoebe Glick. So please welcome Lyric Hunter, who will introduce Stephen Boyer.
This is comical, isn't it? Yeah, is that good? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Stephen Boyer is online. They are uploading nature online. They are on nature, uploading line. They are alien internet. Their trades are many, including surviving, investigating, and writing. Thank goodness. Because their publications include #Uploading Nature from Fields Press 2014, Parasite from Publication Studio 2013, and Ghosts from Bent Boy Books in 2010. Please welcome to the stage Stephen Boyer.
So, it's a model release porn for a porn that I'm applying for. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she was like, "Yay, congratulations, you graduated from grad school." And I was like, "Yeah, so that means you have to call me master now." And then she was like, "But did you find a job?" Knock, knock. It's your artistic writing legacy. It's a really bad joke. Cool. Well, I guess I'll read to you a little bit of what I've just spent 2 years working on. My Facebook post got 4 positive comments, which led me to again consider we as my preferred pronoun choice. Us is passive, whereas we is active. I wondered, is my affinity with us directly related to my desire for bottoming? This question posed as an active thought. Was I topping my inner bottom or entertaining my desire to think outside of a binary frame? I don't know. My thoughts flickered and scattered, just like the rules of grammar flickered irrationally in my long hair. She preferred to abstract the etchings, mapping letters and punctuation marks. The symbols are tools that enabled her to better layer words onto the canvas known as the page, not to be read coherently, but more like the gray, formless blob she felt like inside. Its shapes she saw, yet she was financially limited to too few options on the keyboard. It's like comparing the Swedish multi-party system to the two-party system Americans know, but he wants anarchy. His political aggressiveness prompted her to ponder whether question marks felt rapey. I read online that the act of questioning can be triggering for rape victims, given over 90% of our perpetrators go unpunished. The question has failed us. Still, I asked, what is incurred through the emotional experience of registering grammar through the body? It's uncomfortable. My body's uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable whenever I'm triggered, and I'm triggered by the way trigger warnings have made conversations more uncomfortable. Thank you.
Hello. I am going to be introducing Mahogany Brown for Diamond. She is out of the country and sends her love, as well as this introduction. How do you write an introduction for someone who deserves an entire monument? I could write an entire book singing the praises of Mahogany. She is a black girl from the future who uses her magic to gift us poems that are incisive and necessary. Her work is necessary. Mo has worked tirelessly to run the Women Writers of Color room at Pratt. Outside of her work at Pratt, she is one of the co-founders of Black Poets Speak Out. She's been a guiding light for myself and other black women poets trying to find their way in this world that wasn't built for us. I'm so happy to be introducing her on the event of her graduation from Pratt's program. The program won't be the same without Mo. It's an understatement to say she's left an irreplaceable mark for years to come. Mo is, in her own words, black girl fly and a black girl wonder that I can only hope to live up to one day. Please join me in welcoming Mahogany to the stage.
Thank you. That was a good idea, bringing the wine up. I would just like that to be noted in my my package, that I follow directions. You like that one, right? You know that shit's not true. All right, so I'm gonna read what I wrote for the felt, what I wrote and put in the felt. This was courtesy of a workshop that we were able to do in WWOC with Cheryl Boyce Taylor. It's a series of Zuhitsu. Marigold. Each flower a wilting sun. The death of a new day is never kind. Grief ain't no song. No loss is this romantic. Waterlogged. My body swells, a boat of seawater, each hole in my heart a failed boy. The sky is raining hate. It feels like hell, like America. Dear daughter, everything around me is wordless, and I am no longer certain this will reach you before the great sadness. Yesterday, a white girl's mother asked you to be her maid. Today, your father was antagonized with the lynching sound. Tomorrow, I will only be a shell left from all the shock. Temple. When I had no voice, I sutured my poems to a library of friends, pretended each poem was a love letter unfolding, and it almost felt like home. Yes, almost like love. Oh, how the imagination can fracture into a desirable body. Can you see it? Delusional, turning the body into a cave in search of love. Cocoa, nut. Beside the tree, beside the chair, beside the house, beside the pit, beside the tree stump. Coco say don't climb, so I don't. I sit and stare, my skin coming dark and burnt. They say tire, I say brown. They say black, can't take it back, and I don't. I learned to not ask where I'm from. I learned to listen, then not. I'm too scared they're gonna tell me all the things about myself I done already buried in the dark. Beside the tree, beside the chair, beside the house, beside the pit, beside the tree stump. I sit till no one even know I'm there. Gold. No loss is this romantic. Grief ain't no song. The death of a new day is never kind. Each flower a wilting sun. So my thesis is 99 pages of what the fuck? And I'm gonna read you like one page later. That's what we're going out with, I think. Strange and bitter American history. When they turn bodegas into boutique grocery stores. When they bounce cops the block like this hipster protection program won't turn Left Rack into Harlem, turn Harlem into Chirac, Bed-Stuy into Brownsville, turn Brownsville into Gaza, you will taste this strange and bitter American history. Where the mom and pop work more hours than the governor. When the pesticides overflow our sewer systems. When there ain't nothing to keep a mother from coming home to her family. Tell me this gentrification be for my own good. Tell me this housing project be warfare ready. Tell me Biggie died for our sins, and I'll show you a Brooklyn stoop with the baby's name etched in chalk, a hashtag ghost gone, already a price tag on his sister face. She been missing since Sunday. And the chopper lights stay on the concrete near our front doors like this broken system need a lullaby to put us all asleep. I am fastened, fluttering for my own sake. And what about the sweetheart who would grow to love Tamir Rice? What about the sweetheart who would grow to love Mike Brown? What about the sweetheart who would grow to love Rakia Boyd, Akai Gurley, Sandra Bland? What about their mama singing each name for breakfast? Or their church praying for their Bibles raised in the air? Or what about the children? How about they daddy's smile? What about they name make them so easy to turn to ash? How we ghosting black boys and girls for the toys we gifted them? On a Monday, a white body told my black body it ain't earned no apology for the bloodshed, for the nights when my skin's so cold I know I'm inches from death, for the death it bring to me, a silence, a dismissal, an American hug, bloom like a mushroom sky. And what about the blues? Why it cry like hell? Why it hail like America so long? Dear daughter, black women with eyes like ours, be always pray. What is the shape of your body? Response to Janu Kapil writer. Bless the sun, bright in its rising, how it kissed your face this morning, how your breath caught itself in your throat. Today, no one has left the earth violent yet, and no one has lost a war, only breath and here and the sun, amen. Bless the boats, each river that brought your love closer to you, each world within a world, orbit like a colonizer's prayer, where no weapon shall prosper, where no grandmother's juju withers in a lapsack, only breath of a body docking to the land of its lover and the sun. She is here too, on fire, amen. Bless the fingers that stretch away from the body, how it finds another body near the light, how the light make everyone and everything feel safe, how safe can be a new house, and the fingers drop heavy with shimmer like a promise you once dreamt, where you and the sun and your love lie against the skin of each other, the wind whipping you close, your fingers intertwine. Bless a prosperous love and the hands unafraid of its weight, your kind of kiss. Bless the untamed, the unafraid, the unconquerable love. Let it shred itself to bits in your mouth. Look how it stay, look how it stay, amen. For a knowing like this, the kind that wakes you at night, the kind that props open your front door and leads you to a porch and let you look up the block easy with the home sturdy and still behind you at your feet. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I get to introduce Luke Degnan, and I found a sentence in an old bio that said is the son of a firefighter and a philosophy major, and I thought I should say that because I think it describes his poetic line of inquiry pretty down. Luke also, before joining Pratt and the Pratt MFA, worked at Baum as a books editor, and his poems have been in Leveler, Statement Record, Juked, and he has been included in collaboration chapbooks Radical and Black Forest Ham. Sad. And I mean, his writing also, I was thinking about a lot of things to say, and I was coming up with all these things like the debris of capitalist living, criminal arrogance of our daily routines, the illusions of masculinity, the absurdity of purpose, and the purposes of absurdity. And then I read the first page of his critical introduction in his thesis, and he says it much better, so I'm going to say that. What is American fantasy? There are the fantasies of Americans and the fantasy of what it is to be American. What does it mean to embody this American fantasy? I tease out this question by examining self-obsession, gluttony, class structure, depression, political apathy, powerlessness, or the feeling of being powerless. The absurd emotional landscape of work, its murderous banality, the cruel optimism of American fantasy, United States as empire and crumbling empire, and how the fantasy is collapsing. So, that's Luke.
Thanks, Maria.
Yeah.
I'm at a bank, the popular TV show with the baby's face. I can especially relate to the part of the show where the baby cries. And also, I like to watch the baby's eyes, follow the various moving objects. I can just hold up my phone, and in sync with the baby's scrolling eyes, it lets me follow along. The moon, the basketball, the bee, the bird. I'm drunk at the bank. Earlier, I was at a cafe, and when I asked for water, the waiter said, "Scotch okay?" There was a crazy tunnel next to the front door that led downstairs. I wanted to know what was down there. Across the street, the old deli with the basket of 7 gray mustard-colored oranges. Below my table, a bee body. Bees are the smallest of birds. Can't stop me now, zephyr birds, jugs of holy chocolate, shotguns and feathers, my sandwiched, dappled with sunlight. This must mean something to someone, like a password. The dimpled sidewalk, blankets for lowliness, a new knot for a tie, this street dipped, quiet, a moment in the pool, thirsty at a full-vein pub, with dark-eyed smokers at 11, easy round, the same face on every penny, jars filled with harsh bullshit, bullshit-tipped darts, airborne stuff. Planets gradually break apart, crumble into space. I am mildly napkin. I say, I'm down. The waiter came over to my table and topped off my scotch. He said, "From up here, all those people look like picnics, like they're having tiny picnics. This city needs a hero, I think. A werewolf's torn trench coat, dirty Nikes. There are those defense batteries all along the Jersey coast, those Nikes. I think this country needs a hero. I need a wrapped sandwich, unwrapped, put in mouth, chewed, swallowed. I'd take a Pepsi too. I'd take another sandwich wrapped and a Pepsi on a checkered blanket or on a torn up trench coat's lining. Hero, deliver this to me. Do you do delivery?" Wait. Did he say that or did I?
All right. Okay. Marjua. So, in Marjua Estevez's poetry, a listener is invited to hear the hip-hop that raised her, know the lessons that taught her, and feel the language she's speaking. Marjua is the recently promoted senior editor at Vibe magazine. She's just completed her thesis, she's about to graduate, and she's planning a wedding. She's doing it all with style and grace. Among Marjua's various accomplishments and creative commitments, she still finds time to go to a baseball game with some friends. Go Yankees. And she finds time to impart wisdom to those around her. A few weeks ago, Marjua told me, "You have to disconnect to connect." It's easy to get swept up in the busyness caused by an always creative life, but Marjua has found the calm, the strength, and the poetry. It's my honor to introduce Marjua.
That was far too kind. So I tend to, my heart is beating now. So I tend to, I get nervous when I get on stage. And because I get nervous, I tend to rush through things. So I don't want to rush through this because it meant a lot to write down. And this is an excerpt from a working manuscript titled Marooned Alien Princess, which is a nod to Junot Diaz. My relationship with hip hop began there, in my mother's kitchen on the 6th floor, when I first heard a love song without the weak pickup lines or crying violin. swaggering in some old baggy clothes, watching mama fold raisins and nutmeg into her milk rice. I stretched my ears to hear a rap leitmotif dripping boom bap, its words bouncing off a concrete wall, the beat flowing 3 rivers of dopeness. Before my Quisqueya mother could hush the clack boom clack with a turn of the radio knob, Method Man promised me accountability, and Mary J. Blige crooned a faithfulness so deep it taught me love was shades of blue, not gold. Soon, me and hip-hop be first-time kisses and holding hands by streetlight, obsessing over what pleaded love letters we'd exchange the next day. And the next thereafter, I found myself completely enthralled in all that loop around a clap, hit the bass, scratch a soft synth love fest, stealing cassette tapes from my big brother and investing the majority of my time digesting poetry by the greats, not Poe, Whitman, or Neruda, but Pun, Wu-Tang, and Nasir. When I wasn't reading for school or following the orders of my parental units, I was stealing away to scratch the syllables in the words of my favorite songs, songs that be about protest, struggle, and youth. Soon, this love unfurled be about my refuge, about how to move in a world split in two, one where I come off as too gringa, the other more like Smudge, neither here nor there, no one's daughter, an ellipsis, not enough, not good enough, not light enough, not black enough, not enough belonging. But hip-hop be about all this brown funk coming off a hard-kick drum, teeth in a chunky bass line, till all the moonlighters and dream junkies come boogieing down a long slab of cardboard, till pop lock become freedom, till braggadocio and hand gestures become freedom, till spinning vinyl become freedom, till 16 bars in a bridge become freedom, till shorty bring herb to the cipher and she become freedom, and the ancestors start playing bomba, because that's what that shit sound like when you break beat. Mama, it wasn't just an escape route on nights where I wondered if I was made for this America. It wasn't just the thing that kept me from folding into myself, from feeling the swell at the earth at my throat, although it certainly would have sufficed. Hip-hop be a third tongue I understand and speak fluently. It was how I learned to better navigate the story, learn to build a home at the footnotes, and then learn the courage to rat-a-tat rap on and off the page, even when old Miss Higgins preached words like mine ain't pretty or slick. Made me rewrite lines I want to forget years later, but hip-hop, in all its flair, just be whirring the mixboard, flashing soft smirks between notes so intense we fly apart at the sound of Mtume spliced with Biggie mixed with Toto, all laid by Polk of Track Masters and Puff. March 9, 1997. Brooklyn clung to your flesh like water. It stood still to watch you plunge into ancestral rivers. When I die, fuck it, I wanna go to hell. The day your coffin rippled under, I was too young to grieve, to know the sound of a 9mm. I was a terror since the public school era. The cold hiss of its blue steel jolt, your eyes turned over and you were sent flying into sapphire. Heart throbbed never, black and ugly as ever. Every project building, split rocks, bleeding verse, leaked oceans of boom bap and imperial breaks. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Miss Wallace flicked a smile from behind the tinted glass, and the world saw how a mother shatters when her legacy bends back into the earth. They say death is the hardest on the living. When Biggie passed, a small part of hip-hop died too. The old needle had come to a screaming halt. I remember watching my brother clamor at the small screen in our living room, where we both witnessed that lonely hearse split a sea of loyal disciples. The most faithful washed his name in salt. Others dangled joylessly from their windows and fire escapes dumbfounded. Growing up with hip-hop was like growing up with your best friend or favorite cousin. We went everywhere together and always wanted to know what the other was thinking. I used to lean in close to hear what hip-hop had to say. There were images, thoughts, and movements that spoke to my experience, which is a story of this and that combined, a sum of all things, a sancocho of sorts, you know, remixed. Hip-hop introduced me to the people who would change my life forever, the kind of wonderkins whose voices reflected a different world, a more colorful yet disenfranchised world, not embraced on television or in school or even at home. In my becoming, I was reading about everybody but girls of my background. The closer I got to hip-hop, the more I grew tired of not existing in these books. So I started to write down some of the things I wanted to see in the pages, like how being a part-time extrovert and a ghetto nerd supreme meant strange, something wrong, and perhaps a deferred consumption of all the telenovelas that would one day shape me to be the kind and domestic lady mommy only dreamed of. It's hard to imagine my mother today as she was then, docile and conservative to the bone. She was hardworking, no doubt. But there was no room for lofty dreams of becoming a writer. Poetry to my mother really meant playing in the dark, and what children do you know pay bills, she'd ask pompously. Years later, I'd come to realize that she was young and campesina, trying to get in where she fit in, ironing out the kinks in her mouth and her hair. But we both know America be the kind of after party that shuts down when folk like us pull up to the scene. Us get denied, us be refused. What does it mean to be both brown and alive? What do you do with that kind of responsibility? Food and liquor. On the heels of graduation, my ears inside a scuffed up van heard your blood hot at the edge of vinyl. You chanted the Quran in Arabic, spit unabashedly blasted an American terrorist. I saw you kick push into 120 pounds of first-time love. You were sleek with certainty and I, still malleable. When I left home, the wind gusted around a shy city nerd who whistled down a fractured block without a posse, who crushed quick couplets about being black and Muslim. You turned a long scream into a hip-hop fiasco, and America gangster leaned through the storm. Do you remember spinning NWA? Karate chopping monsters, spending hours curled over your favorite book. Your genius is warm on my tongue, Wasalu Muhammad. It crackles in the shadows of 1st and 15th and makes me want to write about a rapper who taught me how to fly. Thank you.
Hi. I'm introducing Phoebe. Hi, Phoebe. To think about Phoebe's work is to dip your fingers in magic. Her work is intimate and extremely critical of the prevalent stylistic conditions in poetry and provides a clear alternative to the oppressive structures in society that translate into writing. I can't help but think of magic realism when reading Phoebe's work. The intersection of the different planes of a reality turn the ordinary into illusion. Aquí habitan los cronopios y famas. Todo el que te lee sabe que el poder poético es tuyo, que luchas cuerpo a cuerpo con las palabras y dejas el alma en ellas. Leerte es perder el miedo. And these are two of my favorite sentences of her work, of the love taxonomy. There's a basic principle in the love taxonomy that love is a state of confusion and nothing is real. Anyone with an interior is only as valuable as their capacity for construction. Also, Phoebe loves horses and Bob Dylan and has a beautiful horse vest. It's a pleasure to introduce Phoebe.
Lara. I'm going to bring it up. When I am not seen on this bench, when I promise to never wear those leggings in public, when I cry at entry point of hug, when one nip slip and I'm expelled from this ball game. When I can't remember if it was wedding vacation or a regular vacation. When I can't remember what I put my money on. Back to the land of everyone evaluating our performance. When baby make eyes at me, when dogs smell fear on me, oh no, the apology for being too forward text, like when someone says, I'll never forgive her if she has her wedding 2 months before mine. Don't think twice, it's blah blah. When I nod my head at wedding talk, when I nod my head at condom talk, when I nod my head in my heterosexuality suit at guys and girls on continents rolling over into the sea. When, oops, did you need this? I'm sorry, are you in here? That's okay, I understand. I get the water, I plump the pillows, I love the company, I feel so alive. When I'm eating but pretend I'm not. When I'm hungry but pretend I'm happy. When I gave him my heart but he wanted my blah blah. When boss smell fear on me. When emotion know no reason. When guy and bar tell me big difference between you and me. When former best friend tell me baby news and I want to quit on the spot and throw my heart at a stampede. My mind has been obliterated to the stars. My greatest weakness is my blah blah. I wasn't qualified, so I died. I had the 9 muses whisper yelling in my ear, what to disturb in the heart of a man. Thank you. My mom and dad are here, and that's really special for me. And I don't want to be a downer, but I'm really sad right now because I don't actually want to graduate. This is about being friends with my period. No great wonder in its hanging there. My period and I go furniture shopping together. It's a vintage place full of stuff a guy named Dan got from his deceased parents' house. I flip through a stack of framed roosters while my period finally tries to settle the issue of the dining room hutch. Excuse me, says proprietor Dan, you can't bleed in here. I look at my period, then start gathering up my things to leave. No, it's okay, says my period. I'm just gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette. It leaves, and for 5 to 7 minutes, I am less heavy than I have been. I parse through a dusty pile of pearls. Dan skims me over, deciding what to think of my horrors. He can have his. Mine, less serious. It's difficult to have horrors and be taken seriously. My period comes back in, and the two of us are curtly evicted from the furniture store. This one's called Unpaid to Care. Sometimes I like to pretend that I have my own way, and I always did. But that's before I remember all the energy I've already spent pretending for someone else. I've taken on the backbreaking task of convincing someone that they are human and that they're important. And I do this by interlacing my fingers to theirs, clearing their dishes off the table, waking them up for work, going bird watching with them, helping them find fun activities that aren't drinking, answering all their specific questions about human nature, saying thank you when they hand me my change and it's just 3 pennies, getting 2 pieces of licorice out of a bag, one for me and one for them, looking when they say look, not worrying when they say don't worry, picking up their arms and waving them at people they know when they don't feel like it, letting them climb in my grocery cart and then catapulting them down the aisle, calming down when they say calm down, voting when they say vote, mopping up the slime they trail behind me so they aren't embarrassed, eating all the poisonous mushrooms in the forest so they can have a fail-safe foraging experience, assuming the voice of their grandmother on the phone and calling their boss to say, yes, it's true, I'm dead, and so cannot come to work today because they are grieving me. I'm going deep in the ground for a long time, at least until my body dematerializes and connects to other dematerialized bodies, and worms eat my particles and pass me through their slim tubes and back out into myself, and the worms pass, and the weather changes daily. and I punch up through the soil as a wafery green shoot and pee at the sky, and babies cry, and cows chew their own stomachs, and there should be a ribbon for how I am compliant. All the work I've done for you has sat on my head and buried me. But over and over again, people like me come forth as reminders that the world is so boundlessly scary and complex, and far from what the maddening crowd will ever hope to understand. And what's that you say? How can I speak if I am dead? Thank you. Okay. For so long, I wondered how I was supposed to act. And then I realized I could simply read a book on it. The book I found was called American Living, and it spelled out a history of relations and how-to form. It divided people into two categories: a person in control of their own emotions, and a person who places more importance on feeling than action. The book had many useful formulas to fill out in order to digest this information, such as: the cultural picture of the blank is of a person who controls emotions in some respects more rigidly than does a blank, particularly in regard to tears, and who is more interested in doing than feeling. Consequently, blank may be less dependent upon their emotional and feeling reactions than blank, and likely to place more importance on what is done than what is felt. This helped me understand my status, but the book certainly had some biases. I started to glean that the book's position on a person who places more importance on feeling than action was that this person may be at a disadvantage in some ways, including mastery in interviewing for jobs, paying the electric bill on time, conveying an eager and pleasant tone in text messages to men from the internet, sitting up straight throughout the entire workday, and articulating projects or goals without crying. My last one. The asteroid of no laughter. I pick you up from school during a catastrophic snowstorm. You are ready with a shovel. Down 2nd Street we stumble, every step needing an upheaval of snow in front of us. Every step takes twice the time. There is no step without a shovel. There is no way to see the street without first carving out a space for it. The city waterfalls into hard rime and powdery sleep. The power is out, but our bodies happily adapt. You and I, covered in fur, nearly blind except for the lanterns, cupping sun-pink palms together. You talk constantly, or rather, ask me questions. How was the ocean formed? Did humans suddenly appear? Is there fresh fruit in space? When during infinity came a universe of words? And you ask me what happened after the Ice Age, and I say, then birthmarks, then humor, then cancer, then love. We plow out a crude map. It seems I will spend my life unlearning my fear to die. We only get flakes of reassurance. My favorite art is the kind that moves bodies through material, an arm reaching sightlessly through a curtain, through which it finds another curtain, through which it finds a new kind of life. Thank you.
So we'll take a 10-15 minute break. You can get another drink, support the Commons. And I just want to let everyone know that the felt is available for sale. It's $12, and there's copies over there in the corner. So we're going to get started with the second half of the readings. And we have Ana Reyes-Bonar introducing Stephon Lawrence. We have Adriana Green, who's introducing Zahra Patterson. Sasha Banks introducing Cecily Schuler. Sade Murphy introducing Abel Shifferaw, and Jeff Olson introducing Kat Tice. So let's start it off with Ana.
Okay, first and foremost, this is a Stephon Lawrence approved outfit. Very important to note. Okay. Stephon, I think when talking about Stephon's work, it's important to talk about her friendship and what it's like to kick it with Stephon. What is seemingly just a few friends shopping for makeup or watching excellent quality trash TV is actually an after-hours empowerment workshop. What seems simple is actually complex, intriguing, and important. Stephon's work cannot be reduced to just one thing. Even the internet is too small for this kind of work. We sat in a sea of her poetry, and just to be immersed in so many words and images and selfies was an impressive thing to be a part of. It's new and it's fresh. Stephon's work radiates youth, the future, the crush you kind of regret, the ghosts you don't want to leave behind, and it's my total pleasure to introduce Stephon John Lawrence.
Hey, my parents are here. I think the funniest question my mom has ever asked is, can poems have bad words in them? Sorry, Mom. Little King Trashmouth. We're in the woods. I tried to tell you, black people don't like the woods. What's the point of climbing a rock? Isn't your life full of enough adrenaline, enough nerve, enough fear? No? What a luxury. I'm singing loudly and beautifully, and a little blue bird flies into my mouth with enough force to split itself in two. I pick and spit at the feathers and bones and flesh out of my mouth, trying not to swallow its head. The ground, my hands, my mouth, covered in tiny blue bird. We're supposed to go rock climbing, nature boy, you and me. You walk ahead without me. You don't notice my singing has changed. Maybe my song sounds the same as gagging. Maybe you don't notice the birds have stopped tweeting. Maybe nothing is going to stop you from climbing that rock, especially not me and my little blue bird. I'm kind of sick and very dehydrated, so we're gonna make it. Picture a red light hanging overhead. This was supposed to be the year of the robot, the year of angels, but all I see is the climax of the end, I think. I still don't know how useful I'd be in a robot war anyway, TBQFH. I keep picking at scabs as if I don't know what's underneath them. I'm looking for that sting. People keep telling me not to feel, hold that ghost at arm's length. Love is a scam, Tinder is the jam, get on it. Tender mechanics. But of all these white boys, only one of them is okay, so be more lukewarm coffee, more. Get in the robot, try not to fuck it up, try to get congratulated always. So not the gluck, congrats, congrats, you did it, congrats, congratulations, you did it, congrats. Omedeto gozaimasu, omedeto gozaimasu, omedeto gozaimasu, omedeto aimasu, amas goes deto. What's it like to not get touched? What's it take to get touched by someone you want to touch back? My teeth are coated thick, covered in plaque like rotten squash or something. It flakes off in chunks if I brush with Sensodyne. Everything flakes off if I brush hard enough. Thanks. I'm a floating thing. Lost in the sound of separation, parts demingling, a seaweed monster pulling apart from myself. Maybe I'll dry up, get made into sushi, my favorite. I'll be a reformed smoker's lunch. Between bites, they'll vape their feelings, blow seaweed and cinnamon smoke into cyberspace. Now, I'm an everlasting thing. The NSA stopped listening to us, so Here's what you need to know. The melted shell solidified into a cogonate that protrudes from my back, a spiked serpent's tail, surrounded on each side by sharp striped insect legs. It balances me, propels me into the air. I'm a hunted thing, protected by cogonate, flexible AF and sturdy, difficult to find and hold down. Please understand, Mr. Kadagiri, after Haruki Murakami. The shell aches, the skin peels off and stickiness oozes out. Inside me is the un-me, injured microbody shelled out, root rot. My brain is growing muddy, circuit malfunction. The locomotive is coming, can you hear? Maybe I'll send you a Snapchat, but you wouldn't know what that is, or my fingers fell off. They're off on their own now, full of force. You get me? You sweat cold, my guy. Do you get it, or I don't? I'm my own nightmare, yours too. Spooky action. Stop saying my name. I'm trying to watch this movie about vampires in love. No, not that one, the other one. Been thinking about theories lately, obsessing over reptiles and past lives. I was a snake once, or a dragon. Really? I must have had wings. Whose heartbeat is this anyway? Really, I've been thinking about depressed robots. I can barely spell anymore. I need you to write my letters. Pens break in my metal hands. Pens fall right through yours. I'm searching for spectral pens. You know what they all say anyway. Current aesthetic, too bummed to do anything worthwhile. You know your robots well, and it takes one to know one, you lovable android. Do a little robot dance to celebrate, because even though you're cold and dead on the inside, you still know how to get down. I don't know how well this applies to me, but I do love a good get down. I haven't seen any quizzes about ghosts, just these sad metal shells. Guess you'll never really know who you are. We're sitting in a pile of dead cigarette butts. You're holding a sign that says smoking kills. I light a half-gone butt and you ask for a drag. We keep dragging on. Evil Twin Part 1, The Assassin Bug. Really, I'm full of noxious gas. It seeps out when I open my mouth. I shove a striped leg or two in to stop me speaking, but now I'm saying things like, yes, of course I don't mind. Please, give me more, your foot inside my chest. Let me give you everything. I think it's great you found a new shell to house. Yes, I have become unlivable. The gas, it seeps. It all sounds hella true, like, couldn't lie if I tried. It's all so distracting, my science is so off. I use the gas to make me unlovable. I use it against myself. Sometimes if I breathe with intent, I come off nonchalant, but evil twins have no chill, believe it. The main me, twin me, other me, etc., whatever, mails cute trinkets. She wants to say, I'm thinking of you always, little ghost. I replaced them with old gum wrappers, discarded exoskeletons, the BITEME keys of keyboards, and a pen cap I couldn't stop chewing. This is my kind of message. I know she, made me, other me, etc., whatever, would not agree. A spooky Mulderfield day. I want to meet these aliens. It's strange that I haven't. Have they landed? I hear a balding man call this tiny woman an alien. She doesn't have giant eyes or a fat teardrop head. Her skin suit is on point, way better than mine. Another man on TV says, we've been invaded. What's up with these dudes? Says, they're here, walking, talking strange languages, taking our jobs, but like, I can only spot earthlings. I don't even have a job to take. What kind of anticlimactic shit, another Roswell scam. I'm choking alone on wishbones now. keeping files open, crashing all my comps. This is really just the weirdest planet. My ears are full of water. Okay, last one. This kind of is about the internet, but it's the only one. It's the only one. Lulz. Okay. Short horror shows, or yikes. 1. Dreadlocks are for everyone. 2. It's just hair, God. 3. But reverse racism, though. 4. My feelings matter, too. 5. Just educate me, civilly. 6. I have black friends. 7. You're silencing free speech. 8. Stop talking about racism. 9. All lives matter. 10. Just do something productive. 11. Stop whining on the internet. 12. You're not going to end racism. 13. Can't we all just love each other? 14. You're really chill, pretty, interesting for a black girl. 15. Why are you so angry? 16. You're just a bully. 17. Jealous of white girls. 18. I spent 4 hours researching cultural appropriation. 19. And here's why you're wrong. 20. White people won't listen to you because you're yelling. 21. Please, educate me. 22. Do some research yourself. People of color aren't the only ones. 23. Should I get my white friends with dreads to curb stomp you? 24. Because I will. I'm shutting this down. My metal hands are rusting. Soft hands are somewhere sending. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so this has been my first year in the MFA program, and Zahra is someone I've admired since day one. After one of the first classes we ever had, she walked up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Zahra. Someone said something about mentoring first years, so how about it?" That is peak Zahra, thoughtful, direct, and efficient. I'd also like to say that I was feeling nervous about coming up here, and she was comforting me. This is her reading. Like the characters in her piece, Activism, Dead, Activate, Zahra is complex, smart, and I typed that in all caps, and has a way with words that is so masterful you'll be thinking about her work for hours after you encounter it. Zahra is also the founder of a unique youth literary arts project called Raw Fiction, and today she has officially obtained her Master's of Fine Arts in Writing and Activism because she is amazing. Please help me welcome this wonderful writer, thinker, and graduate to the stage.
Thank you, Adriana. That's perfect. Alrighty. Yeah, thanks to everybody, Pratt faculty, my cohorts. It's been an amazing 2 years. I'm going to read random excerpts from the introduction to my thesis project, which is called Chronology. And it's also a real diversion for me because usually I'm up here reading kind of funny fiction, and this is not funny fiction. So we'll see how it goes. I've been thinking about the subversion of power. Is to subvert power to give credence to that power? For example, when one expends resources on a campaign to defy or discredit one's enemy, does one not give said enemy more attention, thus increasing the reaches of the enemy's slithery tentacles? Something inherently imperial dictates the situation in which an image always has the same meaning or sound. Apparently, it also changes the brain, altering the psyche of a culture forever. What does it mean for a writing system to be imposed on a culture, to use the sound signs created for another language by users of another language / culture / worldview? What does it do to the conquered culture, to the individuals within, to the generations to come? The extent of control, the mass consciousness that writing makes possible is staggering. The capacity to imperialize a whole civilization's mind that literacy delivers. The dissemination of thought control, reducing knowledge to writing, reducing the inexplicable, those realities of magical unknowns, to wrong. At what point does recorded memory become fiction and created fiction become testimony? I often find myself thinking about the past and representations of the past and erasure. I think about the power dynamics in what is unsaid, unrecorded, and that which gets to be remembered. I was less interested in exploring my own memory than a sort of social memory of language and the role that colonialism plays in distorting personal connections to history. And then, as a Black American writer, it became important for me to somehow position the unrecorded reality of the diaspora and my own loss of language culture into the process of this book. Something that is chronological happens in an order that is sequential based on date. History is usually taught chronologically. This happened, which caused such and such an effect, and that is why now. Our understanding of the world is based on these chronological teachings. The resonance, the omnipresence of chronology is due in part to literacy. Dates can be recorded, coherently tracked, one event happens after another, our sense of reality is fixed in time and place. However, this is not true for the majority of indigenous cultures. Reality is not fixed, tangible, or chronological. The past is present and future. I try to capture this critique in the title and form of chronology. In using the term chronology as my title, I am simultaneously being playful and deeply critical of a globally shared / imposed reality and the way in which history is represented in its dominant forms of narrative that focus on the rich and powerful, glorify the oppressor and its limited linear perspectives. In chronology, I am remembering my friend in the recent past while writing to her in the present, and I've assembled the dates of letters and journal entries in an achronological order. One does not remember one thing after the other. Just as the oral poets had no text to memorize, no way of taking notes to recall a chronological narrative, our experience of life and friendship does not work like print in a book. Experience is mutable. With trauma, we can get wedged in the past. Like seers, we can know the future. The history of slavery is recurrent and present, as is the history of settler colonialism. There is no order. And now I'm going to read a quote by another writer. Part of my thesis has a lot of quotes. It's kind of collage-like in that way. And it occupies the last page of the book. It is from a 1980 novella called Black Sunlight by Zimbabwean writer Dambudzo Marachera. Seeing the small, clean pink drops of memories, tiny pink drops like minute rubies clung to the quartz of thoughts, grazed my brain, and from deep down there my overarching yearning for a single glittering drop to sizzle the hot, stony tongue. Language knotted tightly around my eyes like a bandage made of headaches. Language, shards of a broken, glued together mirror. In it, knotting my tie. English images came out of the barn with 1,000 Zulus at my heels. She found me wedged tightly between past and present. I held my emotions tightly. Soon, a single footprint appeared. Language, big, heavy words, thumping onto my coffin. Thank you.
Hey y'all. Hold on, I gotta. Okay, hey y'all. So I am going to introduce a person who was a part of the very small campaign to get me here. That person is Cecily Schuler. Cecily Schuler writes creative nonfiction and poetry that informs dialogue regarding neurodiversity, creativity, spirituality, and the current ideal of mental health care. But more importantly, I just want to list off a few of Cecily's accomplishments. In 2013, Cecily Schuler became a Bread Loaf Writers Fellow, which is very hard to do. Following this, Cecily Schuler was published in Fire Stories, Further Thoughts on Radically Rethinking Mental Illness. Later, Cecily Schuler went on to publish 3 self-published chapbooks, but more recently, in 2015, and maybe even more importantly, Cecily Schuler became my roommate. Isn't that convenient? So please welcome to the stage, Cecily Schuler.
I'll tell you what, becoming Sasha Banks' roommate was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm not even kidding. Hey, y'all, how you doing? I didn't bring my wine because I finished it. My parents are also here. Give it up for Rob and Lynn. They're in the house. And one of the coolest things that I love doing with my parents is we're from Miami. I want to thank them for moving me there when I was 5. And one of the coolest things we do is head out to Shark Valley. It's this 15-mile hike. Guess what's in Shark Valley? You're all wrong. What's in Shark Valley? Birds, tons of birds. Also, there are tons of alligators. The last time I was in Shark Valley, I had to wait and then drive around an alligator who was just like laying out in the sun like, what? Okay. I've never seen my computer do that. Okay, cool. It fixed itself. Me and tech, we don't get along. So yeah, I write a lot about being from Florida, South Florida. If any of you have been to South Florida, I triple dog dare you to tell me where else on the planet is like South Florida. And I learned a lot from that place. And so this is a poem about that place. You ever just sat and watched an alligator steal her happy ass some sun for hours on a bed of flattened sawtooth? Did you know the spines on their back are evolutionary heat sinks? They come born drinking radiation. Did you know they come born this or that gender, depending on the temperature and their placement within the nest? Did you know they come born horned, a sky-bound tooth on the tip of their snout that they drag across the inside of their leather casing over and over? They must nod yes against resistance, keep their chins up, be strong enough to rip leather with their bare hands, to thrash through their swarm of siblings, all fist-fighting detritus their mama stamped down solid around their soon-to-be-born hunger to protect them, but also to make them fight for it. That their first fight is being born. Did you know they come born grinning? In case you don't know, alligators perpetually smile. I guess maybe I should have told you that. Holler to this cohort and this incredible journal. This is beautiful. You all, like, good work. I'm gonna finish, this is my last poem that is in this journal, that which you can buy for $12. Facebook post, November 26, 2015, 1:10 a.m. Quote, so Winning the Boston Poetry Slam tonight was super cool and all, but what is really making my night is sitting on this train at Park Street, delayed at the station with the doors wide open, watching this guy alternately growl into a space between the car and the platform, and chewing on the leather straps hanging from the handrail. Hashtag, we're gonna make it. And what I mean by really making my night is that I feel you, guy. I went crazy in this town too once, by which I mean I would throw myself out of my body all over this place, a natural response to being a subjected body. I mean, what is a body anyway but 2 handfuls of salt and a bucket of water? To subject a body is to reduce it to salt water and assumptions, and I didn't think I was made of anything solid, just more space than actual matter. And I hoped that meant there was room for more light in here, and I would find myself on the Mass Ave overpass, watching the incoming traffic of the Mass Pike, a river of light flash flooding underneath me, and I imagined throwing myself out of my body into the river, becoming a headlight beaming into the dark with bold and useful purpose. And I didn't think I was made of anything solid, just assumptions and salt water, just more space than actual matter, which is all things once reduced to atomic particles and gravity. And one day I decided to test my theory on Huntington Avenue by stepping into oncoming traffic, the trajectory of a taxi aimed to pass through my 2 handfuls of salt, my bucket of water, and all this space in me. The headlights stopped 5 inches from my kneecap, and there was no horn blast or yelling, just the driver's wide eye and open mouth, and I threw myself out of my body and into his mouth, and I imagined the laughter that lived there, and I became the laughter and the forgetting and the ride to the psych ward in the back of a police car. I became the pills and the irrational logic. I became the bitten tongue, the compliant lunatic, and I think I have wanted to feel cared for long enough to forget what care smells like, and besides, what care can be given to careening headlights, our light particle bodies living inside out, groaning into caverns between train cars and platforms, sending what we know of ourselves to be into the dark, to run our fingers across rust and axle grease, to slide our tongues around leather straps, and maybe you are not crazy, which is to say, maybe they have not yet selected your box. Maybe you are just drunk and disappointed. Maybe you are just out of your mind, which is to say, completely within your light particle body. What I mean to say to you is that I hope you make it home. I hope you make it home.
Suddenly got so nervous. Oh, guys. Okay. Now, keep it together. We're keeping it together. All right. Hey. So, Abel Shifferaw has magical ears. I'll get back to that in a second, okay? Abel's work was the first Pratt student's work I encountered before I started in the fall. I remember sitting in front of the canon between DeKalb and the library, reading a chapter of his novel in the morning before I would have a chance to sit in on Crit later that Wednesday in March. Reading his torquing, his somehow familiar/familial syntax, I became aflame, heightened by the in-between breeze, in-between coast, in-between possibilities, in-between institutions. I felt every idiosyncratic detail of myself summoned to this writing, riveted, and God damn it, I sighed as I read. On the back head side of my excitement was relenting to the risk wide open before me. Could I move to New York and be okay? I was really afraid to come here. Abel's work answered me. Abel's work captures the sizzling postures, the unbelievable optimism and powers of Blackness. His writing is a confirmation, a validation, an ethical drive that has been with him since childhood visits to Ethiopia. I often think of Abi as my big brother, which is funny because I'm older than him. We were out one night celebrating the end of the fall semester, and I slipped and fell at this club we were at. And I really wanted to cry because falling is the worst. And he kneeled down beside me, and I kind of just like clumsily grabbed his ear between my fingers. And I felt so weird about it, and I was like, I'm sorry, I just need to do this right now. And he was like, it's okay. Abel is someone whose ear you can tug on. He will see you with clarity and respect. His writing is an accurate witness for ourselves to ourselves. It is my honor to introduce him, Abel Shifferaw.
Hello. So, thank you, Sade. Yeah, so I was like thinking, you know, what should I read for tonight and stuff, and I dug really deep in the vault, and I got this OG, first edition, dead stock, Pratt MFA chapbook from last year. I don't know if y'all remember that, but yeah, so I'm gonna read from that. If I can find it. Okay, cool. This is about my mother. I guess fitting, right? It was like Mother's Day and stuff. So, my mother's eyes occasionally irritate her. I believe they get itchy or dry or both. And she had some eye drops prescribed to her to ease the pain. So my mother, my sister, and I are watching Wheel of Fortune. During a commercial break, I was instructed by my mom to retrieve her eye medication. Being the dutiful son that I am, I obliged and tilted her head back in preparation to apply the drops, a familiar routine. I inserted 2 beads of the liquid into her left eye. The first partially missed. Usually, my mother lets out a sigh of relief. This time, no sigh, a squeaking sound of discomfort. What's the matter, I ask. I can't open my eye. What? She very calmly repeats, I cannot open my eye. What you mean you can't open your eye? Son, I can't open my eye. I examine the bottle I am holding in my right hand. It is purple and white like the eye drop medication, the same size even. I read the words, nail glue. I just blinded the woman that birthed me, that raised me, that loves me so deeply. I felt the desire to do to myself what I did to her, to punish myself for my carelessness. I attempted to rinse out the glue from her eye, hoping it would open, hoping she would be able to see the world and all of its good and evil again. Yet her eye remained glued shut. She was calm, at peace even. It was rather I who panicked, frantically attempting to get her left eye open. I called 911. And as we waited for the ambulance that I knew that we couldn't afford to arrive, we continued to watch Wheel of Fortune. She's cool. It's all good. It's all good. They worked it out, you know what I'm saying? They put some ointments in there and stuff, so yeah, thank you.
I don't know how to go on. I hope it's okay. Okay. I'm very enthusiastic to introduce Kat Tice. This work, who will be closing the night out? I just want to talk briefly about how what's so important to me about Kat's work is how it's so immediate to the present, so how it's so deep in its willingness to be indeterminate and to find things that people can share, to find an open field of the world that circulates between container ships and between Hancock Street. The power of that present and just the way that that present exists as a gift from her, that in these exchanges and the clothing swaps that she does, she sequesters in those exchanges a gift, like surreptitiously, like a spy cat, through like a sleight of hand that is just putting in something there that kind of causes like an unfolding of something outside of, like an unwrapping. You know, you unwrap the present, and there's some other possible society, some other communion that's held in there. And it's something I really love about her work. So, Kat Tice.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm so glad that you framed it around the clothing swap. Just because I decided to read an abridged version of my afterword, because my thesis was kind of a manuscript about the whole experience of doing this clothing swap project, which I've spent the whole 2 years torturing everybody about why the hell do I do this, and how does it cross over into writing and film and installation, and I had no idea when I got here. And I decided to read this section too because it connects to kind of like this theory that I've been bashing my head against the wall and kind of torturing everybody else about kind of unraveling this like essay from the 50s by this guy named Charles Olson about projective verse. And the first time I attempted to attack this was in Rachel's foundational class in the first semester. And I wrote something and I was like, okay. And Rachel was kind of like, you need to go further with this. This isn't, and I broke down in tears in her office. And I broke down in tears because I wasn't sure anybody cared about what I did behind my work. And she just sat there and watched me cry and just like got it. And then all she said was like, I know. And I feel like I've spent this whole time in the program trying to get past that feeling. And when I wrote this afterword for the thesis, like I had this like weird feeling, like I felt like I cracked something. So that's why I'm going to share it. And I'm going to explain this project consumes me through this. I think hopefully you'll all get what I've been doing through this. Consumes Me was born out of a conversation with my friend Ashley Edwards. We had co-hosted a clothing swap, and afterward, exhausted and pleased with its success, she called me the queen of clothing swaps. It was the first year for moving back to New York from Portland, and I was in a bit of a daze. I had just finished a short film called Umbrella that was an adaptation of a short story by the Argentinian writer Fernando Sorrentino. My interpretation took a personal turn while embracing Kathy Acker's methodology of writing her own narrative into canonical male works like Great Expectations. In my film, I decided that the protagonist would be female, which was significant because in the text, the gender of the protagonist is purposely ambiguous. Even Sorrentino noted after I sent him a link to the finished project that it really changed everything, making the voice a woman. In the film, I used Sorrentino's text as a way for the protagonist to articulate her abortion experience to a psychiatrist as a way to thinly veil my own experience into the story. After the film was done, I was creatively and emotionally exhausted. Over the course of 5 years, it was the only film I had directed for myself, i.e., not a music video or a commercial project while out west, and I was deflated from the draining filmmaking process, as well as the fact that Portland was never a place I found genuine emotional support. I returned to New York a total puddle. I was determined to redefine my relationship to this city, my hometown, in almost every capacity, starting from the people I chose to surround myself with, to having a career in New York with not much else except the names of a few famous people on my resume and a QuickTime file of a 10-minute film that was probably too obtuse for its own good. I had made the decision to not start any new projects for a year. This was a big decision for many reasons, the most logical being that my film had wiped me out financially. I really had to figure out how to get my life in a sustainable place, and project ideation wasn't the way to do that. As someone who feeds on being busy and hiding in their work, I felt lost. I filled my time reconnecting and meeting new people, learning to cook, and working on other people's films, but I was miserable. One day I went out to lunch with my friend Gary, a filmmaker that I had known for a very long time. I've always looked up to him for his ability to make creative work that sustains him while actually enjoying his life. He encouraged me to try a documentary, just a short one. All I needed was a camera and a subject. And that was the part that stymied me. What was the subject? After Umbrella, I felt like I was out of story. He kept reiterating, just look for something that you love. If you love something enough, you'll not want to stop talking about it. Filming it will be easy. Shortly after, I threw the clothing swap with Ashley, and she made her Queen of the Clothing Swaps comment, and it struck me that this could be something. Now that I was looking at the story as subject as a story, I realized that the other way I was spending my time was at a vintage shop called Collector in Bed-Stuy, where I was living, hanging out with the owner, Shana Jackson. We had met at the Brooklyn Flea the summer I returned to New York. I bought a t-shirt dress from her, one of her original designs, in her booth. Determined to show me how well the piece would hang on my body, she shielded me with her massive shawl as I stripped down to basically nothing in the middle of the street fair. As I tried to take off my top while covering my breast, Shana replied, "Stop your fussing. It's not like you got anything I've never seen before." As I left wearing this dress that I always remember as making me feel sort of naked in a way that only felt free, she mentioned that usually she held court in her boutique on Sundays where she sold vintage clothing in person and online. On Sunday, all the dresses were $25, and she usually made mimosas. Come on by. Her store was only a few blocks away from my house, so I started going to try clothes on. Yes, buying clothes sometimes, but mainly for the conversation. As a gentrifier to Bed-Stuy, I realized that there was a choice. Either be ambivalent to that status or actively be a neighbor. On my block, I stopped and I talked to the neighbors when it was warm and people were outside. Our house made food and hung out at the block parties where children threw water balloons on our feet because we asked them to. But once off our street, the racial divide returned until I started hanging out at Collector. A few afternoons there were more people in my neighborhood to smile at, and it was all because we watched each other trying on clothes while we complained about our lovers and landlords. Meanwhile, the search for narrative in my swap habit was unfolding itself to be obvious, and not at all obvious at the same time. I had been a participant and instigator of clothing swaps for close to 12 years. A hamper for swap clothes stood next to the laundry hamper in my closet as if everyone saw their personal textiles as a sort of capital. Yet that's not true for everyone. Ashley's comment reminded me of that. I decided to make a short film that collected narratives about women and their clothes, and I was going to do that by filming clothing swaps. One Sunday, I told Shana this idea, and she suggested that we hold a swap in her space so I could film. After that, I was introduced to one person who introduced me to another, and that drove me down a rabbit hole of other narratives. that explored the ethical problems of the fashion industry. As I got deeper into the fashion industry side of things, I started to find myself questioning my interview subjects' ethics, these so-called activists championing the positions of disenfranchised women for their own capitalist means. The suspicion that pervades this text is reciprocated equally from myself, as it was directed towards me for choosing to play this role in the investigation. But this was tricky terrain to negotiate. It reminds me of Gary's comment about going towards a subject that you love, and the complication focusing on that thing that you love, and how love also disappoints. How loving leaves one left out hanging, vulnerable with the joy. And sadly, most people mistrust joy in themselves and in others. In my case, it brought up questions about feminism. How could I love clothes and consider myself a feminist? I was constantly asked. Ironically, I was questioning my feminism for the same reason, and more that include all the binaries that are currently putting feminism into question: trans versus cis, white versus POC, hetero versus queer, rich versus everyone else. The only place I seemed able to have this conversation was on the page, though. No one seemed to be able to have a conversation, only place judgment, which felt apropos talking about the surface presentation, thinking about politics as surface presentations, vapid feminisms, sustainability without a core. It all made for okay writing, but this wasn't a writing project, I kept telling myself. How could it be something? How could this be something as simple, I felt, as brushing one's own teeth? I had a battalion of hard drives with footage and interviews, journal scribblings and essays started with questions and narratives, and maybe I couldn't make a movie. The film people I talked to wanted a narrative with a clear enemy and one answer about how to do the right thing, as if there's ever been one answer on how to do the right thing. The situation I was in reminds me of Charles Olson's statement in projective verse. I love it. When he says, "This is the problem which any poet who departs from close form is specially confronted by," and it involves a whole series of recognitions. From the moment they venture into field composition, puts themselves in the open, they can go by no track other than the one the poem underhand declares for itself. Thus, they have to behave and be instant by instant, aware of some several forces just now beginning to be examined. I forgot my wine. Around this time, I saw Carlos Moda's We Who Feel Differently at the New Museum, which was a game changer to me in imagining how a documentary could be presented. Now I can comfortably say that the three-tier model of a book, installation, and web experience is based after this project, as well as his other project, Gender Talents. What made sense about it was that I had decided to throw clothing swaps publicly with the primary intention of talking to regular people about these clothes, consumptions, sustainability. These events took off in an unexpected fashion when I started getting asked to participate in events with art spaces. Alternative economy discourse was the popular reaction to the last recession, and I felt in line with that, but then this other phrase started getting mentioned in this project, social practice. And when it was articulated, it wasn't under the most positive light. Yes, I put on events in public space and galleries. Yes, I interact with the public. Yes, I actively practice barter and negate the exchange of money as an artist, and I never said I was doing this to impact a community. People like free clothes, and that's every community. Recently, I went to hear Martha Rossler speak about her garage sale, which was a performative installation she instigated in 1973 in a tiny gallery in San Diego, to have a conversation about commodification with specific comparisons to how the art world bought and sold objects. Since then, she's thrown over 30 garage sales around the world, including the MoMA, and she admits in her lecture that she is always surprised when people ask her to do them. She never had an intention to do it more than once. I hear this and learn that sometimes that happens. Rossler articulates another question during her lecture that I relate to. With this project, I'm asking, what is the public? And I'm more interested in the question of how do you invite people into a work? As I write this, one of my housemates, Alex Cuff, walks into the room wearing a blouse I used to own. I make note of this to her, and we realize she got it at one of my swaps before we knew each other or even lived together. Rossler also makes a point in her lecture to clarify that her negation of the word community stems from not wanting the idea of charity to enter her work, as it maintains an us versus them paradigm that she's trying to erase. I relate to this sentiment and try to do the same in this text by balancing the narrative between my own and the interview subjects as a way to flatline the dynamic of one person has to be wrong, so the other with politic is right. I'm far more interested in a politic that examines how we are all somewhat implicated in one type of oppression or another. My strategy in the writing of this text is a type of blurring, to dissect the multiple ways rhetorical language restrains a political space. Consumption is bad, but to be consumed can be enlightening. When something is deemed sustainable, either people or planet is left out of the balance. We all need a little to sustain, but who determines who gets to be sustained? Making the question in my mind, who is the one who deserves our suspicion? The real suspect, the producer or the consumer, the activist or the politician, or they all really the same thing. This desire to blur feels like the only way to counteract the current space of intersectional discourse. Can someone please bring my wine up here? I'm getting deep, it's like I need wine. Thank you, that was my aunt, because my aunt and uncle are here too. This blurring feels consistent. This desire to blur feels like the only strategy to counteract the current space of intersectional discourse where neoliberal feminism is at loggerheads with a Marxist feminist perspective that enables feminism to be seen from a transnational lens. The blurring feels consistent to what I understand as the base of what intersectionality has always been since its introduction in the late 80s as one that is articulated through perspective and modality as a traveling theory. The role the text plays in this work became legible to me after I did the Consumes Me installation with focus on the retail space in 2015. It was my fieldwork residency. During that event, I started to have sensorial recognition memories about working in a bookstore in high school and college and how much of the in-between time spent in the store between opening and closing was spent writing poetry. These memories made the transparent act of writing equally, if not more risky, than the act of creating a faux retail space for barter. My interactions with participants from the street became more dynamic as we were both decentered. My balance only regained becoming the shop girl character, acting as both a beacon of capitalism while also being a product of it, which made me feel like a spy negotiating the balance of perspective allegiance. This nebulous position I speak of is what I think female-identified individuals relate to and never speak of. As I write this, I keep thinking about something Stephen Boyer said to me once in a conversation. They just can't think about woman complicated. My answer, no, many still cannot. I see this position of having the narrator play with this role of the spy while representing as a shop girl as a reclamation from this position to be able to name the dynamics as they play out in this narrative that I'm articulating, that I am performing. The beginning of Leslie Scalapino's 2007 essay, Disbelief, starts out talking about a writing one can intentionally recall as simultaneously obliterate past events as to create their future, and I relate to this perspective in the writing that consumes me. She continues, as writing, one can't conceive of a future without changing the past and present. The body must happen simultaneously in order to invent the future. My interpretation of this in the making of Consumes Me is accepting that myself as a body had to participate in all these interactions through the investigation, the instigated events, and just life to create something new and articulate what I learned and wish I knew before I started. I'm thinking about a statement from Fred Moten's 2016 lecture, ironically titled Blur and Breathe, where he challenges himself to think outside the standpoint of having a standpoint. This text is a document of me standing pointless, wanting to have a conversation. Thank you.
Luke just whispered in my ear, remember the felt books. Can we have one more round of applause? And I'm going to read these names out. Congratulations, Stephen Boyer. Congratulations, Mahogany Brown. Congratulations, Luke Degnan, Marjua Estevez, Phoebe Glick, Stephon Lawrence, Zahra Patterson, Cecily Schuler, Abel Shifferaw, Kat Tice, and one person who did not read tonight but who graduated and turned in their thesis, 2 days ago is Saretta Morgan.